G'day, my name's Brian Medway and I'm from Grace, Canberra, and we're talking about this. This is session 14. Session 14. I can't believe this. We've done so many sessions, but I've just been trying to provide a resource for using this booklet, and this is the idea of training people to train others, or of discipling people to disciple others. We've had discipleship in the church for a long time, and it's generally meant that some bloke who knows a lot talks to people who don't know so much, and they listen, and then they go away and don't do much at all. So you may think that's cynical, and it might be slightly, but it is reality. That's the way it is, because we cannot produce generations of disciples. Tell me how many generations of disciples you have been involved in producing. See, that's all there. So we're trying to change that. It has been changed. This has been done in so many different parts of the world. Every continent of the world now, maybe with the exception of Australia, you know, there are, and maybe a few other places, but in most other places in Asia, Africa, the southern continent, so the what do you call it? India and the subcontinent. You know, there are movements here that are producing radically advancing discipleship multiplication, church multiplication movements that are not produced by one person who does everything, or by an organisation who controls everything, but by something passing on, a spiritual DNA being passed on, so that the person receiving becomes the person doing, and then the person receiving becomes the person doing. And part of the deal with that is a page like this. You can see it there. It talks about multiplying leaders. And one of the things that often happens in rapidly expanding movements of revivals and so forth is that there's all these amazing numbers of people around, people coming to Christ, but the thing falls over because of a lack of leadership. And in the original, you know, the diagram here, the four, let me get that straight, up, down, up, there we are. You'll see in the middle of that diagram some arrows going around, and it talks about multiplying leaders. And in that respect, the way that people have done that in this particular work has been by looking at Jesus and seeing that Jesus did these four things. He modelled, modelled, assisted, watched, and left. That's a pretty scary thought for a lot of people, especially Christian leaders, because you know, we want to build a codependence. We want to keep on building an organisation that keeps on depending on us because that's where our income comes from, or whatever else. But this is built on a turnaround where the first part of that is to model something for some other people, to show people how to do it, help them to get it inside of them. And in the scriptures, Jesus says in John chapter 20, on the evening of the first day of the week, when the disciples were all together, with the doors locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After this, somebody's just come in and the door's still locked, so you know, they get a bit disturbed. I think I would too. After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." And he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone his sins, they're forgiven. If you do not forgive, they're not forgiven." And so I want to just focus on the phrase, and I hope I'm not taking it out of context. As the Father has sent me. That as you've seen the way I have been sent by the Father, as you model on the way you've seen me being sent by the Father, you've had 3 years of seeing what it's like to be sent by the Father. As the Father has sent me, so I'm sending you. So this is the second generation. Jesus is the first generation. He is the model. These disciples, the 11 of them, and the others who believed in them as Jesus prayed, these are the second generation. So the modelling was done over 3 years. They saw all kinds of things. They saw them repeatedly. The assisting was there because the disciples had to go at certain things and Jesus watched, like the feeding of the 5,000. He said, "You feed them." They said, "We can't feed them." He said, "Yeah, I'll help. I'll help and I'll assist you." So he says, "Bring some that are, and he does a bit and they do a bit. And so the food eventually multiplies in their hands, and just amazing. And so this is assist. So they get it right. And then the third part of this process is watching them doing it without assisting. That is just being one step further back. So the first one is modelling, you're doing it and they're watching. The second is assisting, you're helping them do it. The third is watching, you've stood back and you're watching them do it with a minimum of interruption, so that you're watching how they do it and then making some comments in another situation. And then you leave. So they do it, they take responsibility. Now, we're trying to figure out how this can work, because this is, I reckon, the most important, like in terms of leadership, this is the most important of these principles. Model, assist, watch, leave. So, because if you stick around, then you're going to be the leader, and whoever is potential as a leader is going to defer to you. And so, but you need to support them. But first of all, you model it for them. They watch you. There's a relationship there. There's a commitment. It's not anybody. It's actually somebody who is willing to take the leadership up. Jesus said, when you go to the harvest field, pray the Lord of the harvest to send forth labourers and leaders into the harvest field. So, we're going to raise up leaders from the harvest field, the place where people come to Christ. We want them to stay there. We want them to work there. We don't want to drag them off into some place where they're not indigenous. My family in my domestic sphere are the indigenous people of that sphere. They're the ones who are always there. My neighbourhood is full of people who are this is my definition now, indigenous, not Aboriginal, I'm indigenous, that's how we think about it in Australia, but they are indigenous to Casey. They are citizens of Casey. They dwell in Casey, so they're indigenous there. So if I lead somebody to Christ in Casey, or people lead people to Christ in Casey, I want them to stay in Casey. I don't want to drag them across to some place where they're not indigenous and put them inside some room with a whole bunch of other people who aren't indigenous, and it's not the way to go. So we want to see Casey reached. I want to see my whole family reached, and so I want them to do that in that context, etc., etc. So it's model, assist, watch. That is, watch them do it, and then leave. So I think it's a great principle, and we need to practice this. Just go practice this. Just practice it a bit with people you know. Show how it's done, with opportunity for comment, question and discussion. Some leaders show things and then they don't allow any discussion because they're just fearful of anyone criticising or asking questions. You've got to model this in a transparent way. And I love it. I love this whole thing because I'm not a hero at this. I'm a late starter. I'm, just trying to do what I can and do it better than I used to. And so I'm no world beater. If somebody has an insight that helps, I'm absolutely for that insight. I want to adapt that insight. Assist, help people you're training to practice doing it so that all the essentials are reproduced. Help them to practice. Watch them while they practice. Don't be in this thing of, I can't say anything, they might get discouraged. Keep on saying things so they get it right, because if it's not inside of them the way it's supposed to be, then you're the only one who knows that. So then watch them doing it. Watch trainees train others. Be there when they're training others. You don't do it, just watch. And afterwards, when you're able to be with them, or outside of that time, just hang about with them, and then leave. Leave the leaders you've trained with the full responsibility and support them from a distance. You know, set up connections. It's really important to do that, but it's important that they lead. God bless you as you model, assist, watch, and then leave.